Is Professor Ananya Jahanara Kabir. Some of us are privileged enough to be on her Facebook, so we get to know everything she does, which is quite a lot, as you'll see from the range I'll just tell you about. She's a professor of English literature at the Department of English, King's College London. She's a literary and cultural historian who works at the intersection of embodiment, memory, and affect work and post-trauma in the global south, with a view to understanding better the regimes and the pleasures of modernity. She's the author of Territory of Desire, Representing the Valley of Kashmir, which was published by the University of Minnesota Press in 2009, and of Partitions, Post-Amnesias, 1947, 1971, and Contemporary South Asia, published in 2013 by Women Unlimited. She's currently directing a 5-year project called Modern Moves on Afro-Diasporic Rhythm, Cultures, and Modernity, which is funded by an European Research Council advanced grant. And she has, for a long time, been invested in forms of Kashmiri self-representation, and her recent work in this area focuses on the new forms of cultural production emerging from Kashmir, which range from Facebook groups to hip-hop to graphic novels. Thank you, Ananya.
Thank you very much for that generous introduction. What can I say? It's really an amazing moment for all of us invested in Kashmir to be here. We can only congratulate and thank Dr. Devesh Anand for making it happen. And yeah, I will get there too. And it was just a very moving and important moment for all of us to hear Parveena Iyengarji here and to hear you speak in Koshur. That was extremely powerful, because we don't hear the sounds of this language. A lot of my earlier work was about this issue, why it's such an ancient language, Koshur, and with an amazing culture of creativity and philosophy embedded in it. And you even try to learn it anywhere in the world, you will not even find a course. I tried. So there are many things that are very fundamental in the way a culture and a community and a group represents itself. And my interest has always been from the perspective in the perspective of the long-standing political conflict in the area we are interested in, which is now politically divided in a very complex way between nations. How even the idea of sovereignty can form when often many things that we take for granted in the post-colonial world, like the language of one's own mother tongue in a public sphere which recognizes it, is not even heard outside a very specific space. So that is why, for me, it was amazing to hear just the discussion going on earlier today. What I want to do today is I guess move on from that earlier work I've done, which is trying to look at the disjunction between how Kashmir is perceived and represented by outside groups, external to indigenous Kashmiris, and what Kashmiris feel about their space and its history. And we've come to a position, I feel now, in the last almost a decade now, well, at least 5 or 6 years, where we can, for different reasons, hear more of this self-representation, see more of it. I think even what we heard today with Professor Fawzia Qazi's presentation was an excellent example of this emergent seizing of different kinds of modes of self-representation to just be in a new kind of a global public sphere. So that's why, in honor actually of a term that Devesh coined on Facebook, Facebook Kashmir, I have titled my talk, Facebook Kashmir, and other what I call cyber memory portals, doorways. Well, let me go a little bit deeper into the topic, and I know we don't have too much time, so it will be quite synoptic, but of course, we can explore the issues hopefully in the subsequent discussions. Now, I want to start with 2 quotes which juxtapose the cultural critic Judith Butler talking about the body, the vulnerable body, bound up in a network of relations. And I want to juxtapose that with the words of Mirza Wahid, who we have with us today in the room, talking about a very specific body. And that, of course, is the body of Afzal Guru. We have just heard a reference to him and the scandal around the surreptitious hanging of him by the Indian state. So these two quotes, I think I would like to make, to consider them together in dialogue with each other to bring us to this kind of reconsideration, which I'd like to urge on us, of the Kashmiri body, the body of the Kashmiri person, the kosher body, to use the word that Professor Kazi brought back to the vocabulary today. This body is bound up in networks, and not just the kinds of networks that Judith Butler is talking about, the networks of the street, the networks, physical networks, but also social networks. And I want us to think, therefore, about new strategies of resistance that we can perhaps glimpse in Indian Kashmir, which is a conflict zone, at least since the moment of South Asia's decolonization. In 1947, we had a very interesting paper again today that took us straight back to that moment, and how we should really consider that moment too in all its complexities, not a moment. There are many things going on, even in that thing that we think of as epochal, you know. So thank you for that paper. What I had done in my book was to show how even before 1947, there was this relationship between colonial modernity and fantasy that formed during the late 19th century, not least because of the entry of photographers in the space, and these photographers, who's perhaps the end of that phenomenon we see in the photographers that Andrew White had cited. These photographers generated the valley as a space of desire and of idealized natural beauty, and I call that in my book The Territory of Desire, and that's the title of the book. And what is very interesting is that this has been a very tenacious process. We saw it even in countless number of Bollywood films, and films that we don't even, from the period we don't even call Bollywood, just Hindi popular films from the 1960s. What is fascinating is that today I see very strong evidence of this this capture of Kashmir through representation, through other forms of representation. This is being challenged on many ways, and most evidently, I think, through social media. Social media is fascinating because, of course, it means that when you're using the internet and forms of social media that use the internet, you are disembodied. Your body is not involved, you know. You're in a virtual reality. And yet, the particular contours of Facebook Kashmir, I think, remains entangled with the body in very interesting ways. And for those of us analyzing cultural politics, I think this entanglement makes it very specific, makes the whole Kashmiri situation very specific. Of course, the body has always been there. Let us even think about, remember the words of the late poet Agha Shahid Ali. I could cite any of his poems, but I'm just going to go to that very famous one. I won't tell your father that you have died, Rizwan, but where has your shadow fallen, like cloth on the tomb of which saint, or the body of which unburied boy in the mountains, bullet torn like you, his blood sheer rubies on Himalayan snow. And in this quote, we can see that the Kashmiri body is seen as shedding its blood through the violence enacted on it by various biopolitical regimes. But in shedding that blood, it reclaims the landscape. It is sanctified through the turn to Sufism, to the tomb of a particular saint. It's transformed in that way into some kind of a durability which is evoked through rubies. This is translucent, it's lapid, it's hard, it remains, and it's off the space. It's something precious. So this return time and time again to the body, and often the body in death, is, we can call it, I like to call it, a kind of cryptopolitics, the politics of the crypt, which is also the grave. I'm very interested, again, how this cryptopolitics, which is an old tendency, I have, again, analyzed in a whole chapter in my book, how different kinds of Kashmiri writers in different languages, for example, go back to the idea of the crypt. But now we see this cryptopolitics passing through these new memory portals, which, for example, Facebook pages promote or make possible. And I'm not going to go too much into the idea of cryptopolitics and why I called it that, again, because, it's better to really keep it simple here and, give you a flavor of the kind of analysis I've been doing with the Kashmiri material. I have, again, it's developed, that argument for cryptopolitics is developed in detail in my book. But what I really want to, again, point to here are the changes in that old way of using the idea of the grave, the disappeared body, the body in the landscape as resistance, but now, as I said, using new and different means. And this new moving through the memory portals of Facebook Kashmir, also interestingly remains entangled with another very long-standing tendency in the representation of Kashmir and all attempts to take that representation back by Kashmiris. And this is the idea of the pastoral. Now, the pastoral, again, is a technical term that we use from English literature to designate any kind of idealized representation of landscape. Typically, also, the pastoral is shown as devoid of any relationship with economic labor. So it's like just a place where people relax and hang out, enjoying the beauty of nature without any kind of pain, coercion, connection to any sort of wider politics and so on. And of course, you will see how easily, I think, or useful the term of the pastoral is to try and understand why Kashmir has repeatedly been presented as a certain kind of idealized space. What is fascinating, again, to me is that one would imagine that if the whole world is invested in showing Kashmir as this beautiful space which lies outside of politics precisely because of its beauty, then the normal, an intuitive response would be, well, then Kashmiris must be rejecting the beauty of this place. But no, most Kashmiri cultural producers insist that this is a beautiful space. It is their space. So I find this very interesting that the idea of the pastoral is also used in counter-representation. And again, this is becoming very interestingly apparent in a number of new cultural products that we are able to kind of observe today. I only need to mention in this company Mirza Waheed's fictional depiction of a nomadic shepherd community in his novel The Collaborator, which literally, because the idea of the pastoral is connected with shepherds through the idea of the pastor or the person who tends the sheep. And this is about a shepherd community. Among other things. And of course, you also have someone like Kashmiri cartoonist Malik Sajjad using the endangered Hangul deer, over and over again as a symbol for his Kashmiri selfhood, and that's most prominently seen in his website, Kashmir in Black and White. So that's the image. There is an image. You can see the Hangul heads all the way down there. Yeah. Of course, I've also noted there the new, again, we see new modes of resistance from Kashmir in the form of the anthology of occupation and resistance. We have Fahad Shah in the room as well. All these new texts, I think, emerging in the last few years participate in a kind of movement that both recognizes the way Kashmir's desirability has been constructed, but it also says we need to reclaim it for our collective healing as Kashmiris. And I think that this new phase of resistance really emerged by 2010 through the combined stimuli of unfolding events in the Arab world and increased resource to internet resources by all these different parties. So Facebook, YouTube, blogs, and online journals proliferated, enabling a new generation of Kashmiris to talk relatively freely among themselves, to dialogue with older generations and Kashmiris in diaspora, and also invite the world to hear their conversation, because anybody can access these materials. And this Facebook, I think, especially with its comments and sharing functions, really allows this kind of dialogue, multi-party dialogue, literally, to carry on. Facebook profile pages of individual Kashmiris, as well as event pages, began functioning, again, as what I call memory portals. They were interfaces between users and new forms of collective memory. And these new forms were also just interpenetrated with the memory of older modes of memorialization. So you have different kinds of memorializations interacting with each other. And these portals, therefore, open out also into simultaneous digital and print forms. So you have books that anthologize essays, essays uploaded onto online journals, YouTube videos of soldiers cracking down on youth, essays about those videos. You have Kashmiri protest rap. We are I'm really sad that the opportunity to actually be in dialogue with Roshan Elahi was not with us today, but we know his work. But then there are documentaries about him, and you can access them too. So there's a really interesting proliferation where there was previously very little. We must look to the internet and to Facebook as having enabled a lot of this. Now, these developments, how much time do I have?
Minutes.
How much?
Couple of minutes.
Couple of minutes, okay. I'll just quickly go through ways in which this Facebook Kashmir has enabled the dialogue with older generations, pre-Facebook, if you like, I've been talking about, and some images here might be precious to us to view. This is the Kashmiri artist Masood Hussain with his work Bodies Beyond. This work is called Beyond the Canvas, and it is about women and disappeared bodies. Most of you are familiar with the context. I'm not going to talk about it much, but I want you to note the dove carrying the electronic device in its beak. And for Masood Saab, he explains to me that this is like a telephone or, iPhone or something. It's some small portable electronic device, and it is the dove that is carrying it. This is his daughter, who is seeing this. Her line of sight is directly at the dove, hoping for a better future, as he says, as he describes it to me. This is the portrait of the very well-known Lady Mugli, who was found dead in 2010 with her eyes open, waiting for her son to return. And this is Rafika, who is waiting for her husband with her son and the photograph. These are all, so the painting, how the painting is representing photographs and indexical reality is another question altogether. We can talk for hours on it. I don't have the hours, I have only minutes, so let me move on. Just to say that I first saw this painting as Masood Saab's Facebook profile image. And earlier, I had to go to Delhi and go to Kashmir to really see his works in person. It's interesting that now with Facebook, it's both good and bad, if you see what I mean. I can access it immediately and talk to him on Facebook, but I haven't made that journey to actually perhaps see it in reality. This image is actually part of a documentary made by an Iranian filmmaker called Mohsin Barmahani, but more on that later. A whole promotional video for the documentary also exists on, online, so we can actually see all these things in relation to each other. Going back to the idea of Facebook Kashmir. Very quickly, wrapping up, most of us have followed very avidly the developments around the martyrdom of Afzal Guru, and Facebook again was a way in which this happened. The crypto politics returns here in a way, I would say, around the very precise event of his empty and his body and the grave, which then mimetically sprung up, if you see what I mean, in Srinagar. And we have, again, I quote Mirza Wahid here, talking in another context about this issue and how there was an actual reiteration of the martyrdom of an earlier martyr, shall we say. So we have the same epitaphs almost being used for both individuals, for both these events. And then very quickly we had an amazing proliferation of poetry. Again, I have made a large collection of these. We can only show you glimpses, which again were written mostly in English, interestingly, going back to the idea of an international audience being sought for this sort of public lamentation. Facebook often quoted poems which came on blogs. And then others wrote poems which were cited and quoted by others, other Facebook users who were linked to the authors, and so on. So I think I'm going to end here then with just a very brief summing up comment that what we see today then is a real layering of different kinds of affective and emotional resources, both vernacular and global, both embodied and disembodied. But that entanglement is really what makes the whole use of the internet, and particularly Facebook, in this context of new modes of Kashmiri resistance, particularly crucial and specific to Kashmir. And as I said, the use of Facebook even by older generations of cultural producers who continue to work in their media, but now use the cyber media as well. So we need to find ways to conceptualize as well as mobilize these developments, which mesh virtual and real through this porousness of embodiment and disembodiment. We really, I think, need to think, therefore, this is a way to think anew, not just about the context, but also the beyond in Kashmir, and how we as analysts and people interested in taking our analysis to what's going on in that space, we must attend to the transformation of all our bodies, not just Kashmiri bodies, by these social networks that are daily generating new and as yet very, I think, difficult to pin down archives. Thank you very much.